is my absolute pleasure and honor to be introducing our next guest speaker. Dr. Fiona Smulders is a licensed naturopathic doctor from the Boucher Institute of Naturopathic Medicine here in BC. Dr. Smulders developed a passion for herbal medicine while learning traditional herbal practices from a Kichwa shaman in the Ecuadorian Amazon rainforest back in 2008. After discovering the healing and rejuvenating effects of medicinal plants, she knew that plant medicine was going to be a large part of her life. And it was during her studies at Boucher, she was the president of the Herb Club, facilitated medicine making classes and talks for students. Her additional education includes an honors degree in kinesiology from the University of Western Ontario, as well as additional training in botanical medicine. And she teaches herbal medicine here at the Institute of Holistic Nutrition in Vancouver. It is with an absolute honor and privilege to hand the floor over to Fiona.
Thank you, Jason. Thanks for that wonderful introduction. It's
Yeah.
kind of nice to hear about myself sometimes. Oh yeah, I did do all that. I do all that. But yeah, it's an honor to be here and to talk about my favorite subject, which is plant medicine. I also teach at the Boucher Institute of Naturopathic Medicine too. I teach botanical medicine there as well. So it's a big passion of mine. So I'm just going to pull up, I have a little slideshow here. Getting quite used to the Zoom world by now. So let me just bring this up here. All right, so we have about 45 minutes together, which I wish we had longer because there's so much to talk about in this topic. But today I'll be talking about herbal applications for spring detoxification. So I'll be highlighting some of my favorite herbs to help to support the body in detoxification, and then how to apply those medicinally. So we will start just with a little introduction about detoxification, why it's important and what this process is all about, and then why this time of year is the best time to support this process. So why spring is a good time to detox and cleanse, and then which herbs can help to support this process. And then I'm going to talk about one of my favorite things to talk about, which is wild local plants. And so plants that we can find in both British Columbia, because I know there's people spanning across Canada and maybe even elsewhere joining us today. So you can find these plants definitely in BC and also in Ontario. They're quite easy to find. Some of them you'll probably recognize already. And just a little disclaimer, because I am a naturopathic doctor, I just have to say that the information I'm sharing is not medical advice. It is just for informational purposes. And you always want to check in with your healthcare practitioner before you start any therapeutic approach. Perfect. So let's jump into it. Detoxification. What is it and why does it matter? I think this will probably be better for my volume. So detoxification, you might have heard of this concept already because naturopaths love to talk about this, but this is the bucket analogy. And so the concept of the bucket analogy is that we have a certain level of toxicity that the body can hold or take in. And so that's represented by the bucket. The bucket is our body. And we bring toxins in, so through the environment, through our food, through emotions too, through stress. So all of that can create this toxic load within the body. And then we have a drain. So we have a drainage system that helps to eliminate those toxins from the body. And those are called our emunctories. So these are our detoxification pathways and organs. So we have our lungs, right, that helps to exhale and breathe out carbon dioxide and metabolic byproduct. We have our kidneys to urinate toxins from the body, our digestive tract to eliminate toxins, and then of course the liver to help to metabolize and detoxify within our body, helps to purify our blood and get rid of toxins. Our lymphatic system really helps to cleanse our tissues. And then even menses, so the menstrual cycle every month can help to cleanse and detoxify the body. And then of course emotional release meditation practices to help with more the mental, emotional level of holding emotions within the body. So these are all ways that the body can release certain types of toxins. And this works very well typically when this is flowing nicely. We're not putting too much inside the bucket, and we're also allowing that drainage to happen. But what happens when this gets clogged, right? If our liver is not functioning properly, our digestive tract isn't eliminating properly, the urinary system isn't eliminating properly, menstrual irregularities, right? We're not working on the mental, emotional side, then this system of elimination can get blocked, and we're not releasing those toxins. And then if we keep adding toxins back, into the bucket, into our body, then that creates an overflow. And so the overflow is when the toxins can sort of spill over into other systems. So the skin is also part of our lung tree because we sweat toxins out, but it can also show up within toxicity. So with skin reactions, acne, more chronic inflammatory skin concerns, problems with our mucous membrane. So that's, inflammation in our digestive tract, in our respiratory tract, muscle and joint pain and inflammation. It can affect our mental health. And then it really spills over into all of the other body systems within the body. So really important that we're making sure this is flowing. This is eliminating, detoxifying, and then we're not putting too much into the body. I also want to note here too that yes, there's times that we can do a detox or a cleanse, but it's really important to know that the body is doing this all the time. Right? It's always detoxifying. We're always urinating, hopefully always having a bowel movement every day. And we're always breathing, hopefully. And so that's the body's always eliminating, but we can support these pathways and we can strengthen them and using nutrition, lifestyle changes, and then of course, herbal medicine. So as far as the timing and when to support these systems, spring is really the best time for multiple reasons. So in the spring, you probably noticed already, I know it's a little bit different in Ontario because the spring is a little bit later there. And I think you just had a bit of a snowfall recently. But here in BC, we're definitely experiencing spring. So with spring, we notice a lot of growth around us, right? We see plants budding, flowering, leaves coming out. We also see it in the animals, right? Animals are coming out of hibernation. The birds are starting to sing. Things are becoming more lively, and there's more movement and more color. And so there's a natural energy this time of year that's an energy of expansion, of growth, of mobilizing, and of energizing the body. So we can harness that energy this time of year because we are also nature. We're a part of nature. And so we are also affected, just like the birds and the animals and the plants around us, right? Our bodies are part of that system too. And so we feel that growth. And so we can actually harness that mobilization and that increase of energy to mobilize toxins and eliminate that from the body. And so that's environmentally and more of a nature base. And then also traditionally, so ancient practices from traditional Chinese medicine, they also see that spring is the best time to support the liver and the gallbladder. So there's different meridian systems that we have. It's a different philosophy of health. But there's different meridian systems represented by different organs. And then that shows up at different seasons. So spring, it's the liver and the gallbladder. So there's naturally a lot more movement and energy and strength within that meridian system. And we can also use that to mobilize and release those toxins. And then of course, in the fall and the winter, it's cold outside. We might not be exercising as much as we should be, maybe eating heavier foods. And so as it's getting warmer, we can shift modes into lighter meals, more salads, more leafy greens, more cleansing food as we shift into the spring. And so as far as cleansing goes with herbal approach, in herbal medicine class, we talk a lot about herbal actions. And so these are actions that the herbs will produce physiologically in the body. And there's hundreds of different herbal actions, but the ones that pertain to detoxification would be the ones listed here. And there are definitely others, but these are the main ones that we'll focus on. So herbs can be hepatics, and hepatics means it's good for the liver. So it's strengthening, detoxifying, restorative, and healing to the liver. And then lymphatics. So lymphatics means it's going to support our lymphatic system. So our lymph helps to cleanse our tissues. It's sort of like a surveillance of our blood too, right? It screens our blood, looks for pathogens like bacteria and viruses, things that shouldn't be there, helps to get rid of it, takes little samples of our fluids in our body, and it screens that and detoxifies those tissues. So really important that that's moving and flowing properly. So there's herbs that help that. And then an older term associated with cleansing is called alteratives. So this is sort of a traditional herbal medicine term that represents deep cleansing. And usually alternatives is an action that works on all the emunctories. So it's going to work, a lot of them are diuretics that help with urination. They can move, bowel movements, helps the digestion, helps the liver, helps the lymphatic system. So herbs that are alternatives are going to have that nice cleansing action. And then of course, nutritives. So our body needs a lot of nutrients in order to restore itself, to restore its tissues. So these are all herbal actions that have a great benefit for the body during detoxification. And so what else can be helpful is the taste of plants too. So it's not only about the actions that plants invoke, but even how they taste. So especially in Chinese medicine, different tastes and flavors of plants actually invoke a medicinal quality in the body. And the best taste that we can have this time of year is a bitter taste. And unfortunately, with our kind of standard American diet, we mask a lot of bitter foods with salty or sweet, adding fats to that to make it taste a little bit more delicious, but we're really missing out on a lot of therapeutic approach when we do that. So bitters help to stimulate digestion and appetite. And how it does this is when we taste bitter, it stimulates the taste receptors in the tongue, sends a signal to the central nervous system, which then sends a signal through our vagus nerve, which is a cranial nerve, which contacts nearly all organs of digestion. So this is the big fat vagus nerve. It's a really big nerve that's coming down and is going to innervate our lungs and heart, and also our pancreas, our liver, spleen, all of our intestines. And this is helping to stimulate digestion. So it's going to stimulate digestive juices. So hydrochloric acid, digestive enzymes, and this helps our body to metabolize, to break down and digest our food more efficiently, so that we get fewer end products and we can move that through the digestive system. So bitters is a really, really good approach and taste to bring in this time of year. And a lot of the herbs that are good for detoxification will have a bitter taste because it's going to have that stimulating quality to digestion. So what are these herbs that I'm talking about? Well, the ones that we'll talk about are listed here. So we have milk thistle, dandelion root, burdock root, Oregon grape, and then some wild spring greens. So these wild spring greens, these are the ones that you can find. A lot of these too you can find quite easily in BC and Ontario. And these ones can be harvested and incorporated into food. And so this gives us our nutrients. A lot of these are bitter too. And so incorporating this into meals can really help to detoxify the body. This is me here picking some stinging nettle, and I'll get into stinging nettle. It's one of my favorite plants to work with. So we can't really talk about detoxification without talking about milk thistle, in my opinion. Milk thistle is sort of our star liver herb. It is considered a hepatoprotectant. So this is going to protect and restore our liver. And the parts used for this plant are the seeds. So the flowers will turn to seed and you can harvest the seed and use that for medicine. These seeds have a really, really potent antioxidant complex in them is called the silymarin complex. So this complex works on our liver to protect it from free radical damage and to heal it from free radical damage or oxidative damage. And so a lot of the time with, alcohol, drugs, or even, poor dietary choices, sometimes that can create a bit of oxidative damage within our liver. So this herb can go in there and help to restore that, help to restore those cells to a greater level of function. The unique thing about milk thistle, as far as taking it, is that it's best absorbed in a fat base. So with this herb, and I love making tea, I always have a cup of tea on hand all the time. But when it comes to milk thistle, tea is not the best approach because the silymarin complex is actually more fat soluble. So it's not going to extract very well in water. And so it's a little bit better in tinctures, liquid extracts, or capsules. Or you can incorporate that as a tea or in food, but you want to add some fats in order to absorb that silymarin complex. And usually in supplements, they add some lipotropic factors in there to help with that absorption. And another piece too is that it's a seed. And so with seeds, if you think about seeds and how it works in the environment, animals, birds, they'll eat the seeds, it'll pass through their digestive system and then get released on the other side with a bit of manure to help with that fertilization process. So the seed has to survive that environment. So it has a protective coating around it. And so if we just take that seed, make a tea from it, we're not really going to pull out that silymarin complex very well. So you want to actually crack it, crack those seeds open in order to get the medicine out. And this goes for any seed. A good comparison would be fennel seed. If you buy a bag of whole fennel seed, you smell it, it doesn't really have much of a scent. When you start to crack that open, we get that beautiful aroma. The medicine actually comes out. And so processing milk thistle is a little bit more nuancy than other plants. But it's a wonderful liver tonic. Another one of my favorites, and people might not agree with me because you might not have a good relationship with this one, but is dandelion. So dandelion, I know people always curse this plant when it pops up in their yards. But honestly, it is such a powerful medicine. You can use any part of this plant. So you can eat the flowers, you can eat the leaves, you can even eat the roots. You can even use this, there's a little white material. If you break the leaves close to where it's coming out of the ground, and you get this sort of white latexy material that comes out, you can put that on warts. It's very antiviral and that can help to heal warts. So you can literally use any part of this plant. I wouldn't eat the seeds, but you can blow on them and that's kind of nostalgic. So that's medicinal in a different way. But this herb has been used for centuries. So here's a quote from Dr. Swinburne, climber from the 1930s, calling dandelion an ideal spring cleanser, spring bitter, and spring tonic. So dandelion pops up during the spring, this time of year, and it's sort of like Mother Nature is telling us, here you go, here's some cleansing herbs that you can have to remove some of those toxins that might have been accumulated through the fall and winter months. So very stimulating and detoxifying to the liver, as well as the digestive tract. If you want to focus on just the liver, then the root would be the best part of the plant. So the root is that hepatic, really strong healer and detoxifier for the liver. Whereas the leaves are going to be more of that alternative, so that gentle cleansing for the whole body and very nutritive. And I'm going to talk about the dandelion leaves a little bit later. So really good for liver and gallbladder. And it also helps to balance cholesterol levels within the body too. So it's been used to lower LDL cholesterol and cholesterol in the blood. So really, really powerful cleansing herb to work with. Another one of my favorites here is burdock. And so burdock is the root that's used And this one you might have met burdock without realizing it. If you've ever been through a walk in the woods and with your dog or just yourself, and you notice all of these little kind of dried spurs or burrs stuck to your clothes or stuck to the hair or fur of your dog, you probably walk through a burdock patch. So this is kind of considered nature's original Velcro. Because when these dry out, they get they stick like Velcro does, so with that surface area, and they get stuck in your clothes and everything. So you might have come in contact with that realizing it. But burdock is a powerful cleansing herb. And it's the root that's used for medicine typically. And this is considered a powerful blood purifier. So this helps to, then blood purifier is more of like an older traditional herbal medicine term, but it helps to clear toxins from the blood. So it's going to support the liver in cleansing the blood, and then also support those other emunctories and detox pathways to clear toxins out. David Hoffman, who's a well-known medical herbalist in the States, he calls burdock, something that will move the body to a state of integration and health. So this is a really general cleansing, restorative, helps with cellular metabolism, helps with increasing those detoxification pathways within the liver. So really cleansing and nutritive to the body. It's also considered a very mild laxative. You're not going to be running to the bathroom when you take burdock. It's not that strong, but it just helps to make sure that bowels are moving, which is really important during a detoxification or during a cleanse, because you want to eliminate. And so this allows that process to happen. And then it's also considered a nerve tonic. So this means that it's going to strengthen and restore the nervous system. So really good for people who might be a little bit, tense or anxious, nervous. This helps to restore that nervous system back to a more grounded state. Burdock is also really, really good for eczema, acne, psoriasis, a lot of chronic inflammatory skin conditions. When it comes to acne, burdock is definitely one of the main herbs that I use, depending on what's causing the acne, but it's a really, really good herb when you take that internally to help to cleanse the body from the inside out and help to cleanse the skin. Now, a lot of the times acne can be caused by blocked sebaceous glands. These are oil glands in the skin. And then that blocked gland can create inflammation and sometimes infection. And so burdock actually when you take that internally, it actually moves things out through these sebaceous glands so it doesn't get blocked. And so it really helps to clear and cleanse the body from the inside out, and really good for kind of dry, inflamed skin conditions too. It's very lubricating, helps with that oil production. And then it's also going to be cleansing internally. So burdock is, one of those wonderful herbs to incorporate during a detoxification process to help to clear the body from the inside out. And then another fabulous one is Oregon grape, and I'm focusing on herbs that are more common in these regions. Oregon grape is going to be more common in the Pacific Northwest, but I do believe you can still find it out in Ontario. It's very common over here, so you might recognize some of these grapes. The leaves look a little bit like holly, so they're spiky, but they're not as thick or waxy as holly, and then it has the blue instead of the red berries. You can eat the berries. You just want to spit the seeds out. You don't want to swallow too many of the seeds. And spitting the seeds out can actually be a good thing. You can actually help propagate the plant that way. And I really, really encourage more ethical and sustainable harvesting methods if you are going to go out and try and find some of these plants. But you want to give back to the plants. We don't want to just take all the time. You want to give back, we want to propagate, help that plant flourish. And so you can be like the bird, right? Eat the seeds, but just spit it out of your mouth and out the other end. But the medicinal quality or part of the plant is actually in the bark. So it's the bark of the stem and the root of this plant. And this bark, it's called the inner bark, because the outer bark of plants is usually really rough. That's a protective layer. And then the inner bark inside of that is bright yellow. And so if you peel away some of the outer bark, you'll see this beautiful sunshine coming through. And that yellow is from a constituent called berberine. And when I say constituent, that means like a chemical that's found in the plant that has medicinal actions. So berberine is sort of touted as nature's antibiotic. It's a very, very powerful antimicrobial. So against bacteria, and then really, really good against fungus and yeast too. So it's used a lot for candida. So another nice, powerful ally for cleansing if somebody has candida or yeast overgrowth. Good for SIBO. SIBO is becoming a lot more common and more well known these days. SIBO stands for small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. So too much bacteria in the small intestine. So this can help to clear that out. It could be good for H. pylori infections. So really good for that bacterial or yeast kind of picture. It's also very bitter. So that bitter toning is going to also stimulate digestion. I use it a lot for people who have a sluggish digestion. And so, you know, you eat a meal and then it just kind of sits there, or you have a lot of constipation. So taking Oregon grape before meals can help with that movement, help with that detoxification and the digestion process. Also helps to stabilize blood sugars too, so we don't get so much of that, the highs and lows happening. And then we also want to consider nutrition too. And so a really, really good way of incorporating herbs, for the herbs that I just spoke about, you can have them in capsule form. You can have them as infusions or decoctions. So these are types of teas, medicinal teas. And then you can also take them in tincture form or extract. You can eat some of the ones I talked about too. You can actually eat burdock root. It's used a lot in Chinese cuisine. So burdock soup is quite common. That's really nice and cleansing. And then these ones you can definitely incorporate more into your meals, into more of a daily practice. And again, these are coming up, they're showing up, they're growing at this time of year. So Mother Nature is saying, hey, here you go. Here's some really good cleansing, nourishing, detoxifying herbs you can incorporate into your meals this time of year to help with that cleansing and detoxifying process. So here we can talk about dandelion leaf, chickweed, cleavers, and nettles. So dandelion leaf, again, we're circling back to dandelion because it's one of my favorites. So again, you can eat the leaves, you can also eat the flowers, but the leaves are going to have more of that alterative effect on the body. So really cleansing. It's a diuretic, very nutritive, and it's a very bitter taste. So it's going to stimulate digestion, stimulate bowels. As far as the nutritive components, it's packed full of minerals. So there's iron, potassium, magnesium is quite high in calcium and magnesium. There's manganese, there's zinc in there. So it's sort of like taking a multi-mineral at once, plus that bitter quality. So you're actually going to support and stimulate that digestion and absorption of those minerals. And then it also has lots of flavonoids. So flavonoids are antioxidants. It's going to lower any oxidative free radical damage within the body. So it helps to repair and restore tissues that might have been damaged through that process. And so with dandelion, you can really, it's very versatile, right? We can just eat it, and it's actually good to have in a green salad before a larger meal because it's bitter. So it's going to help to stimulate those digestive juices, get your digestion ready for then the introduction of larger meals. So having that nice spring salad with dandelion greens as your appetizer or first course, It's a good way to take it. Adding some flowers in there for a nice, beautiful, sunshiny color. Having that in smoothies, making pesto, this picture here, so incorporating, so grinding that dandelion with some other spices and some nuts and oils into a paste like a pesto or some dip can be a really nice way of taking that. Having it in stir fries, sautés, baking, really anything you would do with spinach, you could substitute dandelion leaf for that. But just be mindful that we don't want to, like if you really want the bitter taste to stimulate digestion, we don't want to mask that too much. Like for example, in a smoothie, we might not want to add too many sweets to that if we want that stimulating effect. But if we just want to get the nutrients from dandelion, then the flavor is not going to be as important. And I don't know if anyone's tried dandelion leaf, but it can be quite a bitter experience, but a delightful one. So next up is chickweed. So chickweed grows all around, similar to dandelion. Chickweed's more of like a cover crop, so it's low growing. It's a very cute plant, which is usually not an adjective you hear about plants, but I find it's very cute because it's a very small plant and it has these tiny little white flowers. And this is how you can tell if it's chickweed or not, is through the flowers. It's very unique. They're very small. You can see the size comparison. This is actually a chickpea, so half the size of a chickpea or less. And it looks like the flowers have 10 petals, but they actually have only 5. And each petal is deeply spliced. And so that's why it looks like, so there's 5 petals here. And then if these were split, then that would make it 10. And so if you take a look at the flowers, they're quite small, so you have to get pretty close and then follow the leaves down. You'll see that there's actually 5 at the base, but then it splits into 10. So that's very unique to chickweed. That's how you can tell if that's what you've got. There's also a lot of really good plant identification apps you can use too. So PlantNet is one of my favorite ones to work with, and those can be really handy. You just take a picture of the plant and it can tell you what it thinks it is. So chickweed is very nutritive. So lots of vitamin C, B vitamins, carotenoids and flavonoids, so antioxidants, fatty acids, lots of protein. So this is definitely a good comparison to spinach. Another interesting part about chickweed is it's very healing to our tissues. So it can help with any damaged tissues. So it can be used even topically. So if you've cut or damaged your skin, really good for eczema, psoriasis, very itchy skin conditions, because it also reduces itching. So it helps to get rid of that itching and scratchiness. And then tissue healing internally too, right? By providing nutrients to the body, that's going to help to repair tissues. So chickweed is really, I love having that in salads, like what's listed here. You can add it to smoothies. And again, anything that you would use spinach for, you could substitute that chickweed for. And then another wild spring green that you can find around here this time of year is cleavers. So cleavers is, it grows, I guess you could compare it to a vine, right? It's more of a long stem, and then there's leaves that grow in a circle periodically along that stem. So you can kind of see it here. Here's the stem, and then the leaves will grow in a circle around different parts of that stem. Cleavers is there's a couple names for it. Cleavers is also called Sticky Willy. It's kind of a hilarious name. So it's named after its stickiness. So that's another indication of how you can tell if you have cleavers or not. And so the cleavers is actually going to be sticky underneath the leaves, and that allows cleavers to to climb on other plants in order to get closer to the sun, to reach the sun and then get a little bit more sunlight for growth. So it has this sticky quality. So you can tell that it's cleavers if it has that shape, and then if it's sticky underneath. And so cleavers is it's also an alterative and cleanser. So helping to cleanse the tissues in the body internally. And then it's really well known for its lymphatic response or lymphatic action. So it helps to move stagnation. So for the lymph, if our lymph gets stagnated, it usually shows up as edema, maybe swelling ankles, swelling feet, that puffiness of the skin. So the lymphatic can help to move that. And the lymph system, again, also helps to cleanse our tissues and sort of scan and screen the fluids of our body. So that's also going to support that detoxification pathway as well. Cleavers is also anti-inflammatory. So cleavers has salicylic acid, which is a constituent that's also in aspirin and a lot of anti-inflammatory drugs that we have on the market. So we can also find that constituent in plants. So it's quite high in cleavers, and that can also, just like those medications, help to lower inflammation in the body. And so this one I wouldn't recommend so much in a salad because of its sticky nature. It's a little bit strange to eat raw. You can, but it's just not very enjoyable. So this one is good to actually juice it. So you can put it through the juicer. You can also cook with it. So sautés, soups, baking, and then you can make infusions. So that's what's pictured here is the cleaver sits in water. You can let it sit in the sun, or you can put warm water, hot water with it, let that steep for 20 to 30 minutes, and then strain that out, and then you have a nice cleavers infusion. So it's pulling out those constituents into the water, and then you can drink that. And the fluids also help the lymphatic system. I'm just keeping an eye on my time here. This is the last plant that we'll talk about today. And it's a really good one to end on because it is such a powerful plant. So this is one that I usually just drink a tea of nettles every day because I kind of think of it as taking a multivitamin. It is extremely rich in vitamins and minerals. So it's quite high in iron, really good for someone with iron deficiency. It has silicon and silica constituents, so that helps our connective tissues. So it's actually used a lot in arthritis or joint pain or any damage of the connective tissues. Really high in calcium, magnesium, lots of vitamins, vitamin A, K, vitamin C, B vitamins, lots of protein and fiber, flavonoids in there. So it's a really wonderful herb to work with for that nutritive action. And then is also a really good alterative and cleanser for the body. Again, working on those emunctories, detoxification pathways to clear and cleanse toxins from the body. So this one, the only thing to note, which is an important one, is that this isn't stinging nettle. So it does sting. There's little hairs on the stem and then under the leaf. So when you touch it, it does create a bit of a sting. So you never want to eat this raw for obvious reasons, but you can get rid of the sting if you blanch it. So blanching is you get a pot of hot water, bring it to a boil, and then you put the nettle in there for just a minute or two. So blanching, and then take it out. So that heat in the hot water gets rid of the sting, gets rid of those hairs, and then you can eat it. So then you can put it in smoothies, this is a recipe I did last year, made a nice pesto out of the nettle, stir fries, again, anything that you would do with spinach, you can substitute for that nettle. So all of these plants are available right now. And I really see that as Mother Nature providing this medicine for our bodies during this time. Another really good way of incorporating all of these nutrients on a daily basis and a delicious basis is adding them to smoothies, right? So again, instead of that handful of spinach or kale, or in addition to, you can add some of these wild greens. And that's going to be very nutritive and very restorative to the body.
Awesome. Thank you, Fiona. That was very informative and awesome as usual. And I think I'll be stopping by on my way home and grabbing some dandelion greens.
Yay!
Yeah, we do have a few minutes for questions. So if you want to put some questions in the Q&A, and I'll get to a few. And then if we don't get to them, you can always email me, Jason at instituteofholisticnutrition.com. And I can always connect with Fiona and get some answers for you and stuff like that. So, okay, well, there's some thanks rolling in. So I think people really appreciated the information, Fiona. Let's see. So would it be damaging to consume these herbs during another season? Also, if I live in a different part of the world, should I be looking for herbs that are seasonal for this region instead of the ones you shared?
Yeah, good questions. I wouldn't say it's damaging to take these plants outside of the springtime. You can definitely do detoxes any time of year. It's just spring is going to be the most powerful time to do it. Usually spring, and then you can do a fall cleanse as well. But it wouldn't create any damage to the body. And often with these bitters, it can be more of a long-term treatment, right? Taking that before every meal for a long term. So that would be fine. And then I always recommend eating locally. So because with the plants that grow, the plants create constituents because of the environments that they grow in. And so, like, for example, Oregon grape has antimicrobials because it might be exposed to microbes in that environment. If we live in that same environment, we'd be exposed to those same microbes. And so the plants would naturally have the right armor that our bodies would need. So it is nice to work with local plants in that way.
Awesome. What is the best way to store some of these herbs? Can they be in containers with water? Can they be frozen? Is it best in compressed containers without water?
Yeah, good question. Yeah, so a lot of these can be, so when it comes to like the bark and the roots, so like Oregon grape and burdock and the seeds, those store a little bit better. So you can you can dry them and then keep them in airtight containers, usually 6 months up to a year. For more of the delicate herbs, you can still dry them. Like I've dried a whole bunch of nettles. Just make sure that they're dried, and then you can put those in sealed containers too. The best way though for nettles is actually freeze dried, because then that preserves the nutrients. So you can actually freeze them. So yeah, you can dry them. You can make them into tinctures. So tinctures would be extracts and alcohol, and that actually extends the shelf life to 10 years. So that's a really good way if you want to keep that around for a long time. One thing to note though with cleavers is best fresh. So you really do need to harvest that one and use it right away. So it's not really good to dry it. You can tincture that one too, but it's really best to have that as a fresh herb.
Awesome. Are these herbs available also in tea bags? I mean, I know dandelion and nettle is, but maybe you can.
Yeah. So a lot of detox blends will have a lot of these herbs in them. So definitely with the burdock and the milk thistle and dandelion root. So my favorite, I'm in Vancouver, so my favorite stores to go to are like Finlandia, Quidita's on Commercial Drive, or Gaia Garden on Broadway. And so they have really good detox formulas that you can buy. That brings me to, there's another piece for medicinal teas. You can have tea bags as a regular tea for like leaves and flowers. That's usually sufficient, but for roots and bark and seeds, you actually want to do a decoction, it's called. So you want to actually put that at higher heat and let that simmer for about 10-15 minutes. So the regular steeping, it gives you something, but you're not going to get the full medicinal quality from it.
Awesome. And hi, Ish. I'm glad you were able to attend. Can children have dandelion if it's added to smoothies?
Yeah, dandelion greens, definitely. Yeah. So I mean, it's similar to again, to spinach or any of the other edible greens, and chickweed too. And yeah, these are really good herbs for kids.
Awesome. And what form do you take of burdock? Is it available in tincture form?
Yeah. So burdock is available tincture form, capsule form. You can get the dried root, like chopped up, so you can make the decoction or the tea from burdock. I like using it in a tincture form. It's a little bit easier to use, and then you can get lower alcohol percentages, or if you're concerned with the alcohol content, you can actually put tinctures in hot water, and then the heat can help to evaporate some of the alcohol out.
Awesome.
And then you can eat it too. So you can find burdock root in like farmers markets or health food stores too, and then you can incorporate that into cooking.
Well, thank you, Fiona. I mean, that was great, and yeah, definitely, you can reach out to Fiona, obviously, and you can reach out to me here at the Vancouver campus if you have questions about herbal medicine course, about Fiona's continuing education course. Any questions, and we'll take it from there. So thanks again, Fiona.
You're welcome. Bye, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your day.